All right, let's talk about something we all probably should have gotten at birth, but didn't. A user manual for our own minds.
Okay, let me ask you something. Ever get to the end of a really stressful day and just feel nothing? Totally numb? Or how about this one? You're just going about your business and bam, this wave of sadness hits you and you have absolutely no idea why? Yeah, if any of that sounds familiar, listen up, because this is the most important part. You are not broken. What you're feeling, it's a signal. And in this explainer, we're going to figure out how to read those signals together. Okay, so first things first, we need to start decoding our brain's secret language. And this is such a powerful way to think about it. If you're someone who feels things really, really deeply, that's not a weakness. It just means your psychology is tuned a little differently. You're basically experiencing life in high D, with fewer of those emotional barriers in the way. All right, so where do we even begin with all this decoding? Let's start with the big one, our emotions. You know that feeling of getting sad out of absolutely nowhere? Well, there's a name for that, kind of an informal one, subconscious sadness. And here's the key thing to get. Your brain is always working, always processing stuff in the background. So sometimes that sadness you feel isn't brand new. It's just being released. And this breaks down why that happens so perfectly. It could be what's called an emotional memory, like a random smell or a song takes you right back to a feeling, even if you don't know why. Or it could be delayed emotions. This is huge. It's when your brain finally feels safe enough to let you process stress that you had to shove down earlier. And of course, there's just plain old mental fatigue. You've been carrying so much that your emotional buffer is just gone. And suddenly, tiny things feel massive. And this is so true, especially in those super quiet early morning hours, right? Ever wake up at 3 a.m. and it feels like every worry you've ever had is sitting on your chest? Well, that's because your mind literally wakes up before your emotional defenses do. You're awake, but that logical part of your brain that helps you sort things out, it's still booting up. So if all that feeling bubbles up and leads to tears, it is so important to remember this. Crying is not a sign that your system is failing. It's the exact opposite. It's your system doing maintenance. It's like a pressure release valve for your brain. Speaking of overload, that brings us perfectly to our next big topic. What happens when everything just feels like it's too much? Okay, you know that feeling the day after a huge presentation or a big fight? You're not stressed anymore, but you feel foggy, drained, kind of flat. There's a great informal term for it, a cortisol hangover. And yeah, it's not a real medical term, but it perfectly describes that crash your body goes through after being flooded with stress hormones. You're coming down from survival mode. Now, for some people, that feeling of overwhelm can be next level intense. And I love this metaphor for explaining why. For a neurotypical brain, tackling a to-do list might be like flipping one big on-off switch for a task. But for an ADHD brain, it's like staring at a giant control panel with every single light blinking at you at once. It's not a lack of focus. It's that everything is demanding your focus all at the same time. And how are you supposed to know where to even start? It leads to that freeze mode. So when you're in that state, when your whole system is overloaded, what do? Because, spoiler alert, just trying harder is not the answer. The real key is to support your body. First, ground yourself physically. Do some slow breathing, a gentle stretch. Then refuel. Stress burns a ton of energy, so grab some food, drink some water. And this is so important. Don't try to force yourself to feel something. That numbness, that's your system going into low power mode to repair itself. It's a feature, not a bug. So what your body is asking for is compassion, not more pressure. All right? So all of this internal stuff, our wiring, it obviously doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It totally shapes how we connect or struggle to connect with other people. Okay, this is a huge one. So many people mix up introversion and social anxiety, but they are not the same thing. And this breakdown is fantastic. For introversion, the core driver is all about energy. Socializing drains your battery, and you recharge it by being alone. Simple. But for social anxiety, the core driver is fear. It's the fear of being judged or rejected. And here's the ultimate test. Plans get canceled. An introvert feels peace. A quiet night in. Someone with social anxiety feels relief, but it's usually followed by a nice side of guilt and shame for feeling that way. And of course, our wiring totally shows up when it comes to romance and attraction. Take lust, for example. It feels like this big, chaotic whirlwind, but it actually has some pretty predictable stages. First, you've got that initial attraction, right? Your brain spots something new and exciting.
That quickly ramps up into infatuation. This is the stage where your brain just fills in all the blanks with perfect, amazing things and puts them on a pedestal. Then you hit the climax, the peak of all that intensity. But then the clarity sets in. The chemical cocktail starts to wear off.
And that's where we get to the most important part. Lust is all about that intense desire. But clarity? That's about choice. That's the moment you get to see the person for who they really are, and you get to decide if this is something you actually want to build on.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. The whole point of this user manual idea isn't to slap labels on ourselves. It's about making a really important shift, moving from self-judgment to self-awareness.
Honestly, if there is only one thing you remember from all of this, please let it be this. You are not broken. You are just wired differently. All those things you might think of as your flaws, they're not. They're just features of your operating system that you haven't learned how to use yet.
And this is how we reframe it. This is the new way to read your signals. That feeling of numbness? That's a protective shutdown. Sensitivity? Nope. That's high-resolution processing. You're just seeing the world in 4K. Overwhelm? That's a system overload. Crying? As we said, emotional maintenance. And needing solitude? That's just smart energy management. See? They're all just signals, not failures.
So I'm going to leave you with a final question to chew on. What if that thing you consider your greatest flaw? What if it's just a signal you haven't learned how to read yet? Because once you start to understand your own wiring, you get to work with yourself instead of constantly fighting against yourself. And trust me, that changes everything.